Welcome to Business Agility Now, the podcast powered by Scaled Agile. I'm your host, Adam Mattis. This is the place to get advice, stories, and perspectives to help you work differently and build the future. Thanks for listening and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. All right, we're hanging out today with our friends from NTT Data. Logan, Ravi, how are you gentlemen doing?
Really good, Adam. We're grateful to be here and glad to be here at Safe Summit as well. A lot of good conversations, and we're looking forward to the one with you.
It's a good energy here.
There is.
You know, it's kind of weird sitting down here in the basement because the energy comes in waves. There's times down here where I'm by myself, and then there's other times people come to eat, and it's like, I can't think. Ravi, is this your first summit?
No, this is my first summit globally, but I've been to The Hague.
Well, I guess they're about to spill the beans, but I'll spill them to you. Have you guys heard where the next one is? Next European summit?
European summit?
Yeah.
Italy.
Sorrento.
Yeah. You guys are picking the right spots.
That's a good one, actually. And I've heard some pushback from our European clients that they're going to maybe have a hard time getting approval to go to a vacation destination for a conference. But in my head, I'm like, well, that was kind of the point. But I also hear what you're saying.
It is the right time to go to Italy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's really a wrong time to go to Italy, but that's just me.
Weather-wise.
Yeah, well, fair enough. All right, well, guys, I want to dive in and I want to hear a lot about what's going on at NTT. I mean, first off, are you still going to stay in cycling? Are you still going to sponsor cycling teams as NTT Data?
That's the plan.
Okay, I mean, it's pretty good stuff. I mean, that's where I first learned about NTT was I'm a major cycling nerd.
Oh, yeah.
So the race teams, yeah, good stuff. We can talk about bikes later, but Logan, kind of take us through a little bit about who you are and what you got going on.
Yeah. So, as a kid, liked to play with computers, got through high school, decided on a college, wanted to be an engineer and wanted to be a mechanical engineer like dad, likes my dad a lot. And the school I went to did not have mechanical engineering, but we did have computer science. So 20 years later, I have a computer science degree. I thought I would be an engineer today, computer scientist, but not right now. Got really fascinated with being able to implement Agile and DevOps. So over the last few years here, I've been a consultant and trying to help people actually execute and learn from these practices.
Logan, I got to ask you, how did you pick your school?
Oh, it was free.
Oh, well, that's a good point of selection criteria. It's better than mine. I picked school based on who would let me play baseball, which, for my massive stature, I mean, they weren't exactly lining up around the corner.
Okay.
So I picked the school first based on who would let me play baseball. And then I picked a major based on whatever was in the catalog, because that's not why I was there.
Yeah.
It's just interesting to see, like, there's so many people in our space. You would expect that everybody was some kind of an engineer. Most people are. I did also I was a computer science major, so I did do that right. But I'm also, I don't think I've written a line of code since maybe 2004.
Okay.
Which it makes me effectively useless.
Generative AI can help that.
True enough, but you still have to know how to integrate it. Ravi, you strike me as a guy that probably made better decisions than we did.
I hope to disappoint you, but let's see. Actually, Logan surprised me because I'm the exact opposite of Logan's case. So I grew up in India, and I actually wanted to be a mechanical engineer. So the university I went had mechanical engineering, so I did that. But my parents and the family, they wanted to do computer science, wanted me to do computer science because it was a dot-com boom and everything. But I didn't like it, so I went against them, upset them, and did mechanical engineering. But ended up, from my first job, ended up in an IT world. But programming is not something, because of all the personal preferences, that's not something I enjoyed, but it fascinates me. So although I was in the IT world, I was in the different line analysis, that line, and then transformation is something that kind of caught my eye. In 2000s, I moved to the UK and been living there since then. And over the last 15 years or so, I've been kind of working in the transformation space, helping our customers.
I'm curious, guys. So both of you had interest in mechanical engineering. You're in tech now. Has the architecture discipline ever been something that's kind of appealing to you? And I ask that because I went to computer science. I realized I hated programming. I like designing things a lot more. So I was personally drawn into architecture. But I think I had a different perspective than a lot of architects that started out as being really focused in the nuances of coding, because I always liked bigger picture. And a lot of the architects I run into are much more focused on the details. I mean, so just out of curiosity, have you ever dabbled?
I think it's the design aspect of it for me. Mechanical engineering, it's all physical, visible. You can touch, feel it. But when you're being a software architect, it's the same concept. You're still designing a slightly different. But I think to your point, a successful architect needs to see the bigger picture before they draw into the details. I think that's where balance needs to be had.
Yeah. If you had asked me this question when I started my career, the tactical nitty-gritty architect would be the path that I would have chosen. Now, when I think of architecture, I think the answer to your question first, Adam, is I could still probably dabble in architecture. A lot of the engagements that I'm on, I think that there can be large improvements in the way that organizations adopt and execute on architecture, and it's a completely different answer than it was 20 years ago.
Well, and if you're honest about any of the transformation work that any of us have done, it pretty much all comes, like, your ability to succeed quickly comes down to two things. One is hearts and minds, and two is architecture, right? Because a lot of enterprises grow by acquisition without integration, so there's bottlenecks everywhere. The reciprocal to that technical debt is organizational debt, because whatever we did in the tech for a workaround, we have to have an operational process that also works around it. And I think organizations are just, they're messy, right? Their architecture at all levels is just messy. So you can't get into, and maybe this is why the three of us seem to enjoy it so much, right? Is a big part of transformation or evolution is undoing that mess and designing elegance into the path forward.
Yeah. And it's interesting because we was having this conversation with Jason yesterday, me and our head of engineering, and he was asking, like, what should we do? And I was telling, like, one thing that I personally experience in most of our engagements is that, we go and optimize and transform and optimize the delivery models, business, product, everything. What we seem to forget is the architecture. Architecture should be leading the delivery, not just part of the delivery. So I told him, like, if I want to focus more on, to kind of further optimize it, to take it to the next level, is I want the architecture to be leading and kind of adopting the same mindset for as delivery. And when I say delivery, I don't mean the tech delivery. I mean the overall business product delivery.
Absolutely. You can't do anything without a plan in a big company. And that's essentially what architecture is meant to do. It's meant to say, we are actively planning for a future, and we know generally what that future is going to look like, while also providing assurances that what we're delivering today are safe, secure, and compliant.
Yeah. And I think the other big part of what has been enhanced in recent years for architecture, these types of modifications that we're talking about to architecture, is architecture, in order to create that company that you're talking about, Ravi, it has to have a more incremental, agile approach. It has to be modular. You have to have architects, business or technical, who are willing to break and bend the path that has been set for them in the past, especially at those companies that you're talking about, Adam, that are large and just acquiring new technologies. And it becomes a large part of the conversations that we get to start with. Leaders know that there are those issues, but they don't often have enough data to say, hey, I'm telling you what I see and I hear and I observe, is that you have to actually go focus on your architecture before scaled agile transformation makes any sense, but it can be part of the scaled agile transformation.
And I think to your point, that's where a lot of people miss, right? They get so focused on building teams, launching arts, getting to PI planning that I don't know if it's because they're afraid of the conversations or the conversations are difficult. You've got to architect the future that you want, right? You can't start modularizing your delivery cadence and your delivery models without understanding how the architecture needs to evolve to support that modularization. And, I think a lot of the times when organizations say we're struggling, it's not with the people, it's not with the process, it's with the architecture. And I want to be clear that I'm not saying that's an architect's fault. I'm saying that a lot of the times architects are invited to the table late. I think architects in general are overburdened. You can't just go hire a new architect, right? Because architects are built as a byproduct of having had worked in a lot of different parts of the organization and understanding how they work. So it's a bottleneck, and it's not the fault of an individual, but it's something that we need to maybe slow down to do well so we can accelerate in the future. And like the way that I always picture architecture, and when I say architect the future that you want, I'm sure you've both taken leading safe, so I'm sure you've seen the IndyCar video, right? Where they say, here's a pit stop from 1950, whatever.
Sponsored by IndyCar.
Can we go down that path? If you want to do that, we can do that.
All right.
Okay, so the 1950s IndyCar was not an NTT Data car, and that was a 1:17 pit stop. But then when it's fast forward to the 2024 IndyCar and it was the NTT car, a pit stop is like sub 10 seconds, right? And you can't throw people at that problem and have them pit faster. You have to architect the car with the goal of having a really fast pit stop. You have to build tools with the goal of making that pit stop really fast. And I think that's the perspective that a lot of organizations need to take. Like, we can't just say we want to go fast and throw people at it and reorganize ourselves and expect to go faster. You've got to build a capability to go faster. And again, I think that's a big miss by a lot of teams.
One thing I want to add, picking up on where you were talking about the architecting with an intent. If you look at the changes happening within our customers, most of the cases is brownfield. If it's a greenfield, then it's actually relatively easier to adopt some of this modern architectural style and kind of future-proof it and make it more modularized and make it easy to evolve. But where it is a brownfield, you got to live with lots of constraints. There's monoliths here, monoliths there. So the job is already harder. And now we are expecting the architects to work around those constraints, but still be more flexible and more adopting the evolution of it rather than just doing the upfront thinking.
Ravi, I think what you just described is the difference between how SpaceX can iterate a rocket in a quarter and other space companies can't agree what they're going to build in a year or more, right? I mean, it's because when you start greenfield and you have a goal in mind with a scarcity mindset, right? Then you build things with the intent of being lean and being fast, because that is just how you have to go to survive. And then the byproduct is something really cool. Like, I mean, what just happened a few days ago where they caught that Falcon Heavy rocket on the darn launch pad is insane. Like, it was cool to land a rocket on a barge. To land a rocket on a launch pad and have an arm catch it is insanity. And to think about how fast a company like that can go from blowing rockets up in the desert to landing the largest rocket ever created on a pad is just, it's nuts. And to your point, it's almost easier to look at those greenfield companies and say, well, that's the way forward. Or if you're a bigger company, and I've seen this a lot in automotive, it's almost easier to start over than it is to fix the architecture that you have in place. And that's why I know, so Ford has an independent technology arm that's building all of their new infotainment and connected driving features. The Volkswagen group has founded Cariad, which is their tech group, because instead of trying to re-architect what was there, they just decided it's easier to start over. So before we get too far down that, I want to talk about NTT, and I want to talk about, kind of the global mission that you have today. Like, what is the primary value prop that you're delivering to customers?
globally, our focus is not just now. I mean, the last 18 months, there is an increased focus from our side to bring that product centricity to our customers, because that's the future. That's what I mean. If you're not helping our customers to be product centric, then they are going to be left out in the competition. I mean, that's why they bring us in. So that's been the focus, and that will continue to be the focus. But within that product-centric mindset, there are a couple of areas that we are especially focusing in, started focusing in the last few months, and it will be the focus for the next at least 12 to 18 months, is around infrastructure and also operations. Because yes, product centricity started with technology delivery at the heart of it, but then we said, okay, that cannot be the only thing. We need to extend it to the business side of it, product side of it. And I think I wouldn't say it's solved, but it's much better than where it was before. But now there's the other end of the cycle, which is the operation side of things, the infrastructure. That also need to be taken care into the whole product mindset. I think that's where the focus is going to be. And our next strategy or parallel strategy is the augmented engineering. So we can't leave that middle delivery bit on its own, because that needs to be continuously improved. So our next gen thinking for that is the augmented engineering. Of course, with all happening or development coming with the Gen AI, that will play a big part in our solutions and services around augmented engineering. But it's not just Gen AI. There's much more to the augmented engineering that we are offering our customers.
I mean, it sounds like the natural evolution of things, right? So like we talked for a lot of years, and we discussed this before we got started, was, we've been doing digital transformation for a long time, right? We've been leveraging SAFe to transform how we deliver technology. We've been hyper focused on value streams. And, once you've started to really get a hold of those things, the ultimate goal is, well, we're a digitally integrated organization. And in order for us to be digitally integrated, we need to focus on the things that we sell exclusively and how we can optimize that product delivery cadence. And I think, your point's correct in that the thing that's always forgotten about is the maintenance and operations component of anything. And I think the cool thing about, like, when we look at SAFe and we look at value streams, and we look at like organizing arts around the delivery of value, and we look at all of the great product content that's in the framework, we've got to start looking holistically, right? Because what we don't want to do is just get good at building features and good at building products and then forget to maintain them. So I think when we take a whole product approach, it's the same philosophies you would have on a Scrum team, right? Where the same team that builds it maintains it. Well, now the team's just different because it's all of the people required to build the thing. And as I say this, it really reminds me of an experience that I had at Under Armour a lot of years ago, where the way that they build things is from a category perspective. So when I was there, I oversaw the military and law enforcement division. And I had everybody in my team who I needed to deliver products to market. So we had the salespeople, the marketing people, the product developers, designers, sourcing people, everybody. Like, we were one team. And every decision that we needed to make, we made as a team, and we delivered together, right down to, similar to an operations context, when we had a t-shirt, a moisture wicking t-shirt. It seems small. You're kind of wearing one right now, Logan, but it's a polo. If I wanted to change the fabric on that polo, it's not just like you wave a wand and you're done. It's a big process, and we all have to do it together. And like, especially in the military context, it was cost benefit, right? What's the benefit we gain by making this switch? Operationally, how many contracts do we have to change? Do we reskew? And if we reskew, how do we reissue all those contracts? Can we make the contracts get signed before the new product drops so that we don't have a gap in delivery and operations? And I think it's literally that same conversation, but we're not focused on t-shirts. We're focused on digital products.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were thinking that we are considering it holistically, but there were still a few parts of that ecosystem that was not considered. So the focus is now to kind of truly consider every part of that ecosystem within that product lifecycle. So that's that's the focus for us. There is another trend that we started to see with most of our customers is we were talking about digitization in the last 2 decades. So I think globally, there is a relatively much more better digital estates out there. Most of our customers have a good digital maturity as well. So it's not just about enhancing and taking it to the next level, but it's also about how do we rethink and create new revenue streams with the help of the digital assets that we have, the digital products that we have. How do we create new revenue streams? Again, it also requires an alternate thinking, but again, product mindset, product centricity is absolutely critical and crucial to kind of invent these new revenue streams using the existing digital assets. We got to do more with less with everything that's happening around us. So we have to be more creative with this product-centric thinking.
While I'm sitting in the studio today, I thought I'd take a minute to talk to you about Safe Studio, a game-changing platform for learning and practicing safe, no matter where you are in your safe journey. Picture this. Your team streamlined like never before with common self-paced learning and the right assets at the right time, all at their fingertips. Safe Studio isn't just a tool, it's a breakthrough in aligning your team's effort with your big picture goals. And we've all been there. You go to a training class and you leave with all this energy and great ideas, but you get back to your desk on Monday and you're a little bit lost about how to apply all of that great content to your context. Well, Safe Studio helps you avoid that ambiguity by providing clarity, efficiency, and most importantly, resources to help you hit the ground running in your new way of working. But Safe Studio doesn't stop there. You'll also find tools to connect to the greater Scaled Agile community. Simplified course management in the virtual classroom, access to all of our platforms like piplanning.io, Comparative Agility, and others. You'll find templates to facilitate product development activities and safe events, along with toolkits, video tutorials, and good gracious, so much more. Check out Safe Studio today and see for yourself at safe.scaledagile.com. Now, back to the show.
Logan, a year ago, we talked about Launch, which is a US product by NTT. Can you help us understand kind of how that fits into the conversation and some of the points that Ravi's making?
Yeah, so Launch was launched about a year ago.
I love
maybe
that.
18 months ago this time.
Launch was launched, and I do recall a rocket in there somewhere.
Yeah, we have rockets. Our leadership team has dubbed themselves Starfleet. So we have we've talked about SpaceX. We have the space machine lingo going on for us. We are focused on trying to help companies be at the edge of innovation with their product strategy. That means different things for different companies, obviously, right? So there's companies that are nimble and can be greenfield, like we've talked about, and they're good at it. So we have the ability to help out with their strategy from an innovative perspective. And you've got the corporations that work with us that are more brownfields, like we're talking about, and they are in need of re-understanding and reinvigorating what it means to be innovative. They often struggle, bigger companies that are brownfield often struggle with strategy in general. I think that usually is just a symptom of leadership culture because of that M&A activity. You're trying to jam together lots of different styles. And so we in North America with Launch, and that's where we focus on this Launch stuff, we are product strategy, product engineering, product design, product innovation, and we really try to focus our consulting and delivery efforts in those areas.
So I think I've heard both of you say product leadership a few times now, right? So I think often people will use leadership as an excuse for why things can't work, right? Because it's so much easier to just blame that person up there than take accountability on my own, which I think we can all recognize we should all be taking accountability. So as you go down this path of helping others be good at product, what are some of the leadership traits that you recognize as being required for success in this way of viewing the world?
Yeah, my biggest one that I ultimately try to talk to leaders about, especially when they have seen the light bulb, they've seen the light bulb's on. We want to move from project to product. We think that the product operating model in Sched Agile framework is right for us. Leaders, be curious, please, because you've hired a whole bunch of smart people and you're paying them to do these roles, and they're going to help you learn this stuff, but you have to be curious. That is the conversation that I like to start with them, because that ultimately gets them involved in a way that makes sure that they can help to lead. This isn't just a role; it is an activity that you have to participate in, and curiosity is that first spot.
Ravi, what about you?
It's interesting. Well, you started with curiosity, because I was in one of the sessions earlier today, which was actually talking about how leadership can support product-centric thinking and kind of being more agile and everything. And the first line there is, be curious.
I didn't get that from that talk. This was my answer.
That's Logan TM. Logan's trademarked it, everybody.
So yeah, be curious. But I think the second thing is be supportive. And then there is a third thing I would like to add is allow the team to do what they do best. Be there to guide and support, but don't be prescriptive. Give them the freedom. Give them what they do best. Allow them to do it. Experiment with it. Have that appetite to take risk, fail, and learn fast. I think that's the culture that I know we've been talking about this for a few years now, but it's starting to happen now from what I could see from my customers. It's starting to happen, but I think there still needs to bed in at being curious, being supportive, and having that appetite to take risk, fail, and learn fast.
Have either of you noticed through these conversations that maybe some of the analytical folks that we deal with struggle with maybe a fear of creativity? And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. What I mean is that product is a lot more of art than science. And when you think of engineering, when you think of software engineering, it is a lot more science than art, or it has been a lot more science than art. You needed to be right the first time. So have you noticed any reluctance towards kind of the creative approach?
Yes. But I think that's where when you have one individual within that analyst team, when they're pushing the boundaries, that person needs to be nurtured and given the voice in the room, rather than if someone is thinking outside of the box, don't try to bring them into the norm. Allow them and let them do and create what they wanted to do. And I think that's what we need to see. But it's in scarcity. And that's what we need to kind of nurture and develop that culture within our teams, is to think out of the box, be a little bit more creative. Yes, everyone is under time pressure, financial pressure, and everything. So there are constraints within which we need to work. But we need to allow. One of the things that we've been encouraging our customers is have this intentional innovation. So you got to have cadence for that. You got to plan some time so that teams, within Safe, we've got the IP sprint, which is the intent for having the intentional innovation.
But Ravi, how many clients have you worked with that have been like, we don't need that thing. We don't need the IP. We don't have time for that. We have to do work.
Yeah, I'd probably say 8 out of 10.
That's the first thing. And I think when we go back to that creative mindset, no creative person is ever going to argue with you the value of free creative time. To an engineer, they're going to say, that's time out of my schedule that could help us achieve the schedule. So how do you address that? Logan, I see you pointing your finger. What you got?
The first thing that I come to, and it's Adam, it's like you've been sitting in so many of the conversations that I've been having just in the last 2 days, but maybe that's because it's just part of the conversation. Incentives drive behavior.
Logan, get out of my brain. Seriously, I say that all the time. These executives are smart. The challenge is they can recognize a different way of working and how to make it work, but their incentive structure is what prevents them from maybe progressing. You are in my head.
Not maybe. It is a real thing. The thing that pops to my head that I really wanted to say, and Andrew Sells did a presentation that I saw last week where he was highlighting this part of the framework. Leaders have to give intent. I think a lot of leaders are not incentivized to lead in that way. Additionally, we're not incentivized to be creative, right? The IP sprints get left out because the incentive isn't there to do the innovation. A lot of organizations don't run their product operating model in a horizon-based approach or a zone-based approach, whichever of the two that you want to call it. It's just kind of, we have a digital product, we're going to run it until it doesn't make us any more money.
Logan, you just freaked me out a minute because my worlds have collided. So as I mentioned to you both, we're having our first baby in February. So naturally, like any good obsessive engineering father, I've already started researching schools. I mean, I'm not joking. I've already started this process. But, one of the things I've come to realize when researching the structure of learning is that the first several years of traditional schooling are intentionally designed to take creativity that we all have naturally and minimize it and maximize compliance. I mean, that is the nature of a lot of education models. It is, but it all comes back together, right? Because the goal is when we go to organizations and we go to large enterprises, we don't want a bunch of free radicals. We want a bunch of people that are going to do as they're told. So when we go in here now and we start to encourage creativity, you have to wonder what it makes people feel, because every single one of us as a child has unbridled creativity. And then we go into a system that minimizes that. But then now as professionals, we're saying, oh no, that thing that was minimized, we actually want it now. So there has to be internal conflict with people, right?
Oh, I feel it. You feel it. Ravi feels it.
Guys, there's a reason why I'm unemployable in the big market, right? Like there's a reason why I've built my own companies. There's a reason why I sit at Scaled Agile without a real title and just do all the crazy things that come by. I don't conform. Like I've, for whatever reason, I was raised as a free range child, and I have that creativity, and I go into a system, and I think why I'm good as a consultant is because I can come in infrequently and I can help spark those things in people. But I also know if I were to be offered a job full time at any company I've ever consulted with, I would not last 2 years. They would throw me out.
That is why people like you are in high demand in the market now. I think that individuals with that level of creativity is hard to come by when we go and look for with the bright minds in the market. It's really hard to notice that level of what I call the lateral thinking is not there. I mean, to your point, our education system has kind of curbed it. Don't think lateral is not good. That's what we've been told. But we do need that. What I notice is that there's so many individuals and friends I have who can channel that lateral thinking in the right way. They are supremely successful than people who conform to the norms.
It has to be in the right environment though, right?
Yes.
Because there's some places where that type of thinking is never going to be, I don't want to say unwelcome, but I guess that's really what it is, right? There's some systems that reward compliance, and then there's others that welcome a little bit of disruption.
There are, and I'm actually listening to a book right now called The High Velocity Edge. I'd certainly recommend it for us, anybody listening to this. There's something that I learned in that book that it's really interesting. It's the companies that are unicorns, high velocity, high performance. They encourage this, right? They're not small in our space, and there's the creativity that we're talking about, right? Incentivizing it. You're right, Adam. I certainly feel like creativity got beaten is a strong word, but removed from my education. I'm actually encouraged, just to kind of side note, where you're expecting a kid, and I've got 4 kids. My oldest is in the 7th grade. I'm encouraged by their education. They are making strides to not do that to our children. And encourage creativity, meaning, we flipped it. We're encouraging creativity.
The fact that we live under the same education structure makes me feel better.
Yeah.
Because like we're both North Carolina people. We know North Carolina has a good education system. So the fact that you're seeing that leaves me hope for my own public education experience. Ravi, what do you think?
In fact, we changed. I mean, I have 2 kids too, and we actually changed schools because of that.
Great.
Because the schools both my kids were going in, they were kind of forcing the kids to kind of work within a certain rules. And particularly my son, he's a bit more a creative person, and my daughter is a bit more kind of crafty person. So we actually changed the school from where they were to a different school who will promote and they will create the kind of the environment for them and nurture that skill. And we don't want both of our kids to lose what I call their USP, because if that's what they will enjoy when they grow up and they do things related to that, that's what they're going to enjoy. And that's why we made those decisions. So to Logan's point, I think, yes, I'm talking about UK, you guys talking about the US. I think there are opportunities to kind of use and kind of have me walk away from that normal kind of education system where you need to kind of conform to certain rules. But there are things that as parents, we need to go and find that.
Well, guys, I think the good news is, based on this conversation, that there's a lot of people for us to help, right? I mean, I think the world is both rapidly and slowly moving towards an operating paradigm that makes all of us excited. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity for those of us that have the desire to help people with the interest to really thrive and win in this way. Just, I don't want to say it's not a new way of thinking and working, but it's just a more modern approach to getting stuff done, right? I mean, the products of the future are going to be cool, right? We know that, maybe the AI hype cycle slows down some. We can go philosophically into why that's going to be and talk about energy, but we can recognize it's going to slow down, but we recognize that the things that we have are going to change the way that we all work. And I think for the better, right? I mean, I think that there's a lot of ways that we can learn faster, experiment faster, with greater consistency with those tools. So I think when we start pulling out some of the manual work from the work that we all do, it's going to give us the opportunity to be more creative if we're courageous enough to do the work to become more creative. And fortunately for us, we're in that business. It's fun. It's why we do it. I was just complaining to you guys that I've been on the road since September 9th, but there's a reason why I do it. And I like to see people win. I think you both do as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the future is bright, and I'm personally motivated with all the changes, the development that we're seeing in the scientific and the electronics world. So I'm very optimistic about it. Just one thing I wanted to, just going back to the innovation thing, and it kind of came to my mind because you're talking about sticking to the norms and following things. Yes, we talked about this IP sprint. Yes, most of the clients, customers, they will look over it and get some work stuff done. But what we did with one of the customers is that we told them, okay, you'll have to trust us because we're going to do something different in this IP sprint. And they said, oh, you're going to run some hackathons and this, and which is what we've done before. Well, fine. Allow us to do what we need to do, and you will benefit from it. So what we then said is, we directly reached out to their business organization, and we told them, pick 2 things that you want to see something, feel something, but it's going to take, I don't know, another 12 months to get into the roadmap and get the work started. They did give. So what we then did is we organized our team. We used that IP sprint, and they said, we're going to do a proper working prototype for this. And we solved a business problem. So we played it back to them, and their business team were super happy. The leadership was, wow, that would have taken at least 6 months for us to even get it into the roadmap. But now they've seen it, they were able to accelerate most of it and put that into the cycle and take it to the customer. I know this is not kind of very innovative or anything like that, but you just need to break the norm and do something and show something which the customers can look, feel, and accelerate their decisioning process.
So it's creating that spark, right? Yeah. You have to start somewhere, and creating those little sparks is where it starts. So guys, to wrap this up, if people are intrigued by Logan and Ravi and they want to invite you into their organization to create some sparks, what's the best way to get in touch with you, in touch with NTT?
Find me on LinkedIn. NTT Data has lots of people on LinkedIn, and lots of people that are connected to launch and our business agility practices globally. That's the best place.
Ravi?
It is the same. So LinkedIn and our website. So there is our global website, and there is also a website dedicated for the practice, business agility practice, where they can reach out to us.
Well, gentlemen, to wrap this thing up, I'm now on vacation. You were the last conversation I had between the end of summer and vacation. And I got to say, there's no better way to wrap this up than the great conversation that we just had with two good guys. So thank you so much for making the time, and we'll see you in the wild.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you, Adam.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you like what you hear, please refer us to your friends and colleagues and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. I'm your host, Adam Mattis. See you next time.